you've lumped the repairs and maintenance among the OPEX budget somewhere without giving residents clear indication of how much exactly it is for which repairs and maintenance, so they can scrutinize it and tell you, okay, we're happy to pay and spend even more, because we understand Alex is still, there's apartheid spatial planning and they need development. There's Soweto that needs, portions of Soweto, there's Diepkloof, Pinetown that needs areas of development. We understand that, and that's just what most of the residents are saying to us. But when we look for these kind of engagements, then we are ignored. Because, and that is why we say it's politicized. Residents are willing to pay, they are willing to engage, but when they engage, it's a tick box exercise. And when you talk about ANC and DA coalitions, it starts with these kind of engagements. If you are not willing to talk to me as a ward councillor when I tell you, let's just, I'm a ward councillor, so I'm a ground activist, and I'm one of the most radical people I think in the DA at the moment, because if something is wrong, it's wrong. And if residents complain, I'm going to take my residents to City Power and toy outside City Power, for example. Those are some of the things we're saying. You cannot have a big engagement and talk about coalitions when you cannot even respect the residents I represent because of the color of my t-shirt that I represent. And then you expect to have this engagement in a coalition. How are we going to work together if it cannot even happen on a grassroots level and we are ignored completely? And then when we speak, we are told that it's privilege. We're speaking from privilege. It's not correct. So those kind of coalition discussions cannot even, it's not possible at the moment even. Because the very same people who presented the reason why we have the vote split like this are precisely the problem that created it. And even when you're sitting from opposition to try and have an engagement, for example, the MMC is talking about the budget. We asked him to engage the vote. We asked to be engaged. We sent a formal request to be engaged on the budget. And we were ignored. Secondly, the previous budget, we also asked for a formal request. He did meet with us. But the agreement that would be sent to us to look at it and also see where we see that it's, residents are not properly accommodated. The assumption was that we are talking about privileged wards, and he mentioned it publicly. And we must be very clear that the fact that it is a DA ward does not mean that all voters in that ward is DA. That's the first. Secondly, the voters who pay rates service people who are in underprivileged wards as well, to do the capex, to assist with the capex investment that is needed to get those residents out of the apartheid way of where we found them in 1994. And for how many years are we going to have that conversation when it cannot even be, the discussion cannot even happen at this grassroots level? The multi-party charter is precisely what you're talking about, where we are talking about we engage on a matter of not necessarily only principles, yes, that's one, the values and the principles, but also secondly, what do we have in common that benefits the residents? Those are some of
the question of the executive model to change. Would the DA agree with a shift from executive mayors to executive committee in order to help manage some of these?
Let's look at eThekwini. eThekwini is currently being managed by the executive system. What is the experience of residents in eThekwini at the moment? And that is why we're saying that's a bigger discussion that should happen. At this point, until the ruling party, who is running the country and the government, understand that it is me, you, and the residents, the citizen, who dictates how things get done. It will not change whether we change to the executive system, or other system that is there. It is here that it should change. Yeah.
And would you support placing the municipality under administration?
No, I wouldn't support the municipality under administration. I'll tell you why. We've seen in Tshwane, for example, we've had to take the city to court because former Mayor Msimanga left what is it? Not a deficit, a surplus, sorry. And in a few months, it was looted. Service delivery collapsed completely. So we will definitely not support putting it under administration. We're saying in the short term now, until proper engagement is done, dissolving the Joburg Council is the best option, because I can assure you, we're probably going to have another mayor after elections.
Okay.
Okay. If you look at the framework recommendations on coalitions by the ANC, suggest the following: that we are open to an executive system. We are also still looking where possible a mayoral system will still work. So we also say in the framework that the party with the largest seats should at least be considered to be a leader in government. 3, we also say that there should be an insulation of the administration from coalition arrangements. So those are the core issues that the ANC in our policy framework we have developed and adopted by our National Executive Committee. Now, unfortunately, the law says you can't change into the term or mid-term, which therefore means all the proposals that must now go through the COPTA right up to Parliament, once they're agreed to, can only be implemented in 2026 when we go into the next election, whether it's an executive council for metros like Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, or all those changes that we are recommending will only be effected should Parliament agree to in 2026. Now the DA then proposes a dissolution in November of 2023, which basically meant it's 6 months before December, January, February, March, April, May, before the general elections. Now, the law says once you have dissolved yourself in a period of 90 days, you must then go into a by-election, which would have meant January, February, March were into an election, April, May were in another election. Is it feasible, one, for the electorate? Is it feasible for the parties involved? Is it sufficient enough even for the IEC to run a full-blown election in Johannesburg alone? Now, the ANC went into that council to object the proposal because it's not feasible for us as a party. We had proposed that immediately after the 2016 elections, we proposed that in council 3 months into, and it was rejected. So you can't force an election of that nature within a period of 6 weeks.
Could I ask, is it feasible after May 29th?
We can debate it after May 29 as councillors, because what it means, you see, we must be frank and honest about there are councillors in Johannesburg, 270 of them, elected into office on 2021 November. I can't remember the date. 1 November. Now, these councillors are elected into a 5-year term. Just like any one of you is employed on a fixed contract of 5 years, and they enter into financial commitments. We must recognize that fact.
But why should the residents
care? Why should residents care about the financial arrangements of councillors?
It will be easier for you if you also ask the same question. Why should the institution and the students care about your 5-year
But they
contract?
shouldn't. That's the point.
Because they shouldn't.
Impacts direct. No. And I'm raising this matter deliberately. No, because it's undermined. It's as if councillors don't have life, don't have commitments, don't have families. No. They have been given an employment.
But it's not employment, it's service.
The facilitator for this speak. Focus, please.
No, it's fine, facilitator. No.
Let's listen.
Let's allow the
Good, I
debate.
like the anger you are showing.
Sorry, continue. I see
I'm
this.
raising this point because people seem to undermine that point.
Okay, the point is the main
Let's leave it.
That's one point.
employment.
Dissolution of the city of Johannesburg means once you dissolve council and all of us agree to the dissolution, you've got 90 days to go into an election. Now, do we want to do that? Government processes must then trick in, but where we are sitting as the ANC, we objected. And we made our own analysis of why are we objecting. One reason, as I said, we will not run two elections in 6 months period. It will not be feasible for a party to focus. Now, that was the reason why we objected to it. Now you're asking a good question. Will it be feasible after the elections? I think it might be. But let's subject that to parties into a discussion so that we can do that and go into an election in 90 days and allow one party to win. But will we get a full mandate or will we still be forced into similar arrangements post that 90 days? If legislation that suggests the one with bigger votes will go in and run government. Because that can only happen in 2026. In terms of the law, which we are guided by the Systems Act. That's the response to it. Right. Then I think part of your question also speaks to, if I had your question correctly, and Belinda tried to respond, which I thought I should challenge in relation to the fact that the wards and the engagement between the DA and the ANC has not been happening. It is not factually correct. We have engaged with the DA on numerous occasions. Now, when we passed the budget in 2023-2024, we had a full sitting in Tuso House between the DA, Chief Whip of Council, the MMC of Finance, and the Finance Committee, Section 79. We remember engagement does not necessarily mean we have agreed. So we engaged on all the issues that needed to be. There are those that we agreed on, there are those that we did not agree. Second part, when we do allocations, we do budget allocations for all the 135 wards in Johannesburg. It will not be factually true that in the IDP we have not demonstrated the allocations in the wards. Just this week we're in Region E, and ward people from Ward 74, 73, 92, they were in the IDP and they presented their issues in the IDP. By the way, the DA councillors left before we even concluded the IDP. Because people were engaging on it and they left. And were amazed and puzzled. Why are they leaving? Because we have not concluded the engagement. So there is a process of engagement that happens. We have accepted the request for a meeting for next week. And my office is confirmed with Councillor Santana when I will engage with them in preparation for the next budget. We will also be engaging with Action SA, the EFF, so that we understand what are the things that they would want in the budget. Even in January, when we passed the adjustment budget, the ANC, Action SA, and the EFF and the IFP supported the adjustment budget, except for the DA. Now, because we do engage with parties, unfortunately, you have to do it because you believe one thing, that all parties in council have an interest in how Johannesburg is governed and whether Johannesburg will succeed or not. So you must engage them.
Yes, and the law says that we need to too. So it is an important thing to do that engagement. Thank you very much. Dade Ishtes.
We have the late action South Africa.